Hello guys.
We are from
Group of 16.
Want a presentation about
in writing history in Indonesia.
Is Monica Yolanda Silitonga, student number 71 2019 200 to 35.
my number student is 712019-236.
Suratsman Lumban Turwan. My student number 7120192440.
My name is Samuel Hotwanenggolan and my study number 71-2019-238.
Prandi Sujarto Purba. My number student 71 2019 237.
Before getting into the material, we will get to know about Ari Taktu Sukarto. The first present about him, a general view based on experience of the contents of historical writing in Indonesia. The second, teach for Hebrew studies and missiology. And the third, problems involved in writing story to simulate Indonesian Christianity to write history.
Most of them understand history only as a narrative of past events, just like what happened. And this is very much held by the Gereja people in Indonesia. However, if history is not understood as an imaginative reconstruction and critical analysis of social change, in the long run, history writing in Indonesia cannot develop.
So, talk about history from Eurocentric history to local and regional history. The first contents of the section, the church emerged because of the activities of the Dutch Mennonite mission agency, so that it colored the history of the churches. In this case, this type of writing also colored the history of other churches, as seen Chris Hartono's books of the ecumenical movement in Indonesia, for which emphasizes the role of the Dutch government as a midwife in creating the ecumenical movement in Indonesia. And then the second, it is nationalistic, the same as Eurocentric, separating mankind and its environment. Talking about this, where the language isn't written on regional history that takes into account the national cultural identity, because it is national which can be understood by every region. However, the dangers of writing nationalistic histories are the same as those of the old Eurocentric ones, sparing people from other human beings and from their environment. It produced chauvinistic pride and triumph. In such a national historical context, I think it will take some indigenous Christian a long time to write their own church history. The first, they don't have a large amount of written data, something like source issue. And the second, they are reluctant to point the roots of their movement in Western churches. This can be seen in the writings of Zachariah Milo, who satire to show how deeply the Indonesian Christians were involved in the nationalist movement, and so against colonialism from 1900 to 1950. Since the emergence of the East Asian Church Conference, churches which emphasize indigenous ways of communicating the gospel, six writing church history churches in Asia, including Indonesia, to emphasize the regional character have been promoted. This effort is seen in the push of the Southeast Asia Graduate School of Theology to write local church history. Among Indonesian historians, Taufik Abdullah has emphasized local history as a method of writing history. He doesn't reject the universal character of history, but tries to show that every historical writing is colored by the original culture and must be associated with the uniqueness of society, namely the environment and culture. The universal character of history must include the particularity and context of society. Otherwise, it wouldn't be related to them at all. Writing the history of the Indonesian churches in a traditional way, which pays special attention to denominational roots of a particular founding church and emphasize the universal character of history, will not help people to realize the interdependence of their life. And third, regional difference, increasing the isolation of Christianity in Indonesia, not just a narrative but also imaginative past events. Different regional, this isn't merely a factor in this. Arik Taksu Sukarto opinion, it is one of the factors that increase the isolation of Christianity in Indonesia. Writing story is not just a narrative of past events, but an imaginative reconstruction of past events for the benefit of society, life, and the future of society. I'm pleased that Zachariah J. Ngelow's recent work, whose book Christianity and Nationalism, Encounter between Protestant and Nationalists in the years 1900 to 1950, shows regional difference, but also promotes awareness of the contextual relationship of history in Indonesia, which helps society appreciate the importance of their relationship with their environment. Of course, we still need to see the role played by Christians in achieving Indonesian independence as a nation. This points to a subjective dimension in all historical writing.
Explain about leader central or central person by Arik Taksu Sukarto. The essence of centric leader or centric people according to Arik Taksu Sukarto in story are 1. The leader centric or person centric is a very important person in historical times. 2. According to Aristarchus, in the story of society, which is only a figure and a side role. When we become leaders, our names are on record, but we are ordinary people, or we are used only as number, or in other words, we are called side actors. On the last, the writing of Indonesian history must analyze the social aspect of the people, the action of the people, and the obstacle as leader of each individual.
Explain the section on the problem of salt in the history of the Indonesian culture. There are three sort problems in the issue of writing culture history in Indonesian, namely 1. The difficulty of reconstructing past events, especially in Africa. Difficult is what is meant here is because in Africa there has not been a great civilization that can preserve the past. So, it is difficult to reconstruct past or past events in Africa that are difficult to repair. 2. If writing history from the point of view of ordinary people, will face the same sort of problem. In writing this history, it is like the African nation that historical stories are not only seen from the point of view of ordinary people, but figures who really have the freedom, especially to give space for imagination in writing history. And writing history is in dire need of research and data collection. 3. The result of the interview will not be valid in the source is not an expert, not Japanese culture. This is an example that if you write history by interviewing ordinary Japanese people, the interviewee must be a native Japanese culture so that the data collected to write a Japanese history can be valid.
There is not much written about the history of the crowns in Indonesia because 1. The crown lags far behind in other fields and has neglected to encourage younger generation to receive historian training. 2. Lack of written record about the past. 3. There needs to be a buzz in understanding of history.